Hello and welcome back. How y'all doing? It's been a little bit. Oh, excuse me. I got a Starbucks drink. This is actually super good today. It's a iced matcha latte with 2 pumps of brown sugar. She's good, okay? So I want to talk about this just a little bit because I don't really have that. I don't have much time because the sun is already setting and it gets dark at like 2 o'clock now. It's really sad and not fun, okay? But yeah, so I want to talk about something that has really pierced through my heart. I don't know how to describe it, but it really speaks to me. And so I do want to give a little bit of a backstory and try not make this like too long because I don't have much time. The sun goes down so quickly. So I'm in Luke, the book of Luke, and it's chapter 1. And so that's kind of scared me. We're gonna start in verse 5. It says, I'm giving a little bit of backstory before I get into like the meat. Okay, so it says it all begins with the Jewish priest Zachariah, who lived when Herod was king of Judea. Zachariah was a member of the priestly order of Abijah. His wife Elizabeth was also from the priestly line of Aaron. Zachariah and Elizabeth were righteous in God's eyes, careful to obey all of the Lord's commandments and regulations. They had no children because Elizabeth was barren, and now they were both very old. So I'm skipping forward and I'm going to read verse 11. It says, Zachariah was in the sanctuary when the angel of the Lord appeared, standing to the right of the incense altar. Zachariah was overwhelmed with fear. But the angel said, Don't be afraid, Zachariah, for God has heard your prayer. And your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you are to name him John. You will have great joy and gladness, and many will rejoice with you at his birth. For he will be great in the eyes of the Lord. So imagine hearing that and how crazy that would be. Like, first of all, just to hear and know that God has heard you, just to have that confirmation. It's like you can have obviously faith that God hears you and faith that God is hearing your prayers. But to have a physical confirmation of a literal angel coming to you and being like, God has heard your prayer. How insane is that? I think that's so crazy and insane. But to just know, like, God has heard you. God has actually heard you. He's, at times I feel like, when you feel, keyword is you feel as though God isn't hearing you. You can kind of feel that, like, feel that distance from God. But to hear that confirmation of like, God has heard your prayer. He has heard your prayer and he is going to answer your prayer. I don't know, I just think about that. And I mean, I think we experience that in our own ways now. Maybe we don't have angels coming to us, and some people do. But, the Bible says that people have entertained angels, and, but yeah, it's like we experience that in our own way now when we see our own prayers being physically answered. It's like God has heard your prayer and he is willing to answer. He is willing to, do this. He's willing to do that. He's willing to help you out with this, whatever it is, whatever you've been praying for diligently. But it also makes me think about, how long how long were they praying for? How long did it take them to be like, oh, I think there's like an issue. I'm not getting pregnant and it's just not happening. And how long were they praying? Were they praying diligently? Were they praying every once in a while? Did they eventually just give up in prayer? I would love to know. Obviously, I'm not going to know. I don't think there's any like anything on this, but it just makes me think, like, did they give up? Did they feel like a distance from God? Or, how did they feel from this? Did they just think like, okay, I guess it's just not in God's will for us to have kids? It makes me think about like what their thought process excuse me, was, as well. But okay, so there's that. Okay, right? So God has heard the prayer, and his wife Elizabeth will be pregnant, but they're both in their old age, right? So you skip forward and we go to so this is Zechariah's reply. Verse 18, it says, Zechariah said to the angel, how can I know this will happen? Oh, okay. How can I know this will happen? I'm an old man now, and my wife is also well along in years. Then the angel said, I am Gabriel. I stand in the very presence of God. It was he who sent me to bring you this good news. And now, since you didn't believe what I have said, you won't be able to speak until the child is born. For my words will certainly come true at the proper time. And then it goes on to say that he wasn't able to speak. But I think it's, I don't know, to me, I think it's important to note that just because Zechariah questioned, or he doubted, or he didn't believe, like I look at it as like he's just using human knowledge and human logic. Like, he's just thinking, my wife is, I'm assuming that Elizabeth is past childbearing age. And he's like, I'm old, like we're both old. How is this going to happen? But he says, how can I know this will happen? I don't think I called that the first time. Okay, I'll keep reading and then I'll kind of go into that, what I was talking about. But just because he doubted, or just because he didn't technically believe, like that, it didn't just cancel out, God from answering their prayers. Like, God's plan will always prevail. Like, did he have a consequence? Yes, he did, but he was still able to be blessed. Like, God still was able to use him and Elizabeth in the biggest plan of humanity, basically, which is, Jesus. So yeah, because I don't know if anybody else struggles with this, but I can struggle with like feeling, though, I'm not saying, when I say this, I'm not saying that belief and faith is not important. I'm saying it's extremely important, but sometimes I feel, like if I doubt, or if I'm like unbelieving in certain areas where I just feel like I can't believe it, like I'm just like, God, I don't know how to. It's like I want to, but I don't even know how to believe that this is possible, or that this will happen. Like, I don't even know how to do it. I almost can feel sometimes that I'm just completely canceling it out. But it's like, if it's God's plan and if it's God's will for your life, your unbelief or your doubt, like, you might get some consequences. And yeah, it might, with every situation it's different. I can't promise you that your doubt doesn't play a part of your answered prayers or not, but when it's God's plan and God's will, it's going to prevail. And so just because he doubted and just because he didn't believe, or whatever words you want to use, it wasn't just like, okay, never mind, I'm gonna use somebody else. Okay, never mind. Yeah, it's canceled. I'm not answering your prayer anymore. I'm not gonna fulfill the prophecy. You know, you're not gonna be part of this whole plan that I have set out. You know, it was like, I'm gonna still use you because I chose you from the beginning, but you're gonna be silent because you didn't believe, you know? So anyways, I don't know, that like speaks to me too in a way. And then so we're gonna move forward, and hold on, where am I? Okay, so verse 26. Okay, so in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a village in Galilee, to a virgin named Mary. She was engaged. Oh, but hold on, I want to say this. I'm not encouraging anyone to like stay stuck in like doubt or unbelief. I think with time and with your relationship with God, especially, I can only speak from personal experience, but definitely with time and your own personal relationship and God working in your life and answering your own prayers and coming through for you and getting you out of whatever pit that you're in, whatever struggle that you're going through, you know, really helps with relying on him and being like, okay, God, like, I can actually trust you. You are trustworthy. You've proven yourself time and time again, even though you don't even he doesn't even have to prove himself because it's just who he is. But it's like you've proven over and over and over. You've been consistent with your character. So I think that's a really big way of like demolishing unbelief, is reminding yourself of what he has already done and how he's come through for you every single time. And it might not look the way that you wanted it to look, but it was the way that it needed to look, and it was the best way for you, you know? So that's what I wanted to say. Okay, so in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a village in Galilee, to a virgin named Mary. She was engaged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David. Gabriel, I'm having a hard time reading. Gabriel appeared to her and said, "Greetings, favored woman. The Lord is with you." And then there's an asterisk, so I read that already, but it says, some manuscripts add or say blessed. Blessed are you among women. Okay, I'm struggling a little bit. Okay, verse 29. Confused and disturbed, Mary tried to think what the angel could mean. And don't be frightened, Mary, the angel told her, for God has decided to bless you. You will become pregnant and have a son, and you are to name him Jesus. He will be very great and will be called the Son of the Most High. Sorry if the lighting's getting bad. The sun is going down. And the Lord God will give him the throne of his ancestor David, and he will reign over Israel forever. His kingdom will never end. And Mary asked the angel, "But how can I have a baby? I am a virgin." The angel replied, "The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. So the baby born to you will be holy, and he will be called the Son of God. What's more, your relative Elizabeth has become pregnant in her old age." Okay, this is the part. So this is verse 36. It says, "People used to say she was barren, but she's already in her 6th month. For nothing is impossible with God. And I'll finish the part of it. This is verse 38. It says, Mary responded, I am the Lord's servant, and I am willing to accept whatever he wants. May everything you have said come true. And then the angel left. Okay, I want to go back because this is the verse that really got me, was 36. And it doesn't start out like this, but it's like the second part of 36 where it says, people used to say she was barren, but she's already in her 6th month. For nothing is impossible with God. Tell me that is not the most, like, one of the most powerful verses in the Bible. I don't know why. I've read that multiple times, and it was so funny because I read it, and then the next week at church, they read the same exact verse. But I'm like, that's crazy. People used to say that she was barren, but she is already in her 6th month. So just imagine, like, I think this speaks to so many different people. I think it just speaks to, like, people that have been waiting, people who have been praying, people who like are older and they think that their time is up. Like, I listen, I feel like I'm going through a midlife crisis almost. And because I'm not even that old, but I'm like, God, I feel old. I feel old. I feel like I don't know what it is. I feel like I've lived a lot of, I don't know. I've gone through a decent amount, and I think that's what makes me feel old. But it's like, it doesn't even matter what people say or what people, like, how people talk about you. It's like, that's not God's plan for your life. People used to say you were barren. People used to say you were this. People used to say you were that. But she's already in her 6th month. So I don't know, to me that was such a powerful verse, because it's like, I feel like just when Elizabeth thought it was over for her, like I said, I'm assuming that she's past childbearing age. She's like, she probably just accepted, like, I'm just not gonna have kids. That's it. I'm just not having kids. And that's the end of the story. You know, I can do something else. I can do this. I can, I don't know what she did. But, it's like, that was not in God's plan. For nothing is impossible with God. And I think that's such an important reminder for us, because I think it's so easy to just be like, oh, nothing's impossible with God. It's so easy to say that and to read it. But when you actually feel that, and when you actually understand it, it's a completely different feeling and a completely different experience. And when I read that, I could read that over and over and over again. Every single time I read it, I'm like, it just gets me so hype. I don't know, but it's like, I don't know, to me it's crazy, because it really doesn't matter. Really, nothing else matters besides, God's say in your life and God's plan. And even, like, what things look like, even, what the doctors say. Like, if that's not God's will for your life, if God's will is for you to be healed, it doesn't matter, what the doctors say. Like, I was just listening to, oh my gosh, I forget her name. I want to say it's Stephanie Aiko. I don't know. I don't even know if her first name's Stephanie, but she is from, I'm not even going to try, but she's a pastor. I think I really don't know much about her. I'm gonna be honest, but she was on a podcast. That's why I heard about her. And I think she's like out in LA or something. I don't remember, but she was talking about how when she was pregnant, there were complications with the baby, and the doctors wanted to abort the baby. And her husband was like, you know, no, God's got this. Like, God has completely got this. And, you know, they talked about how they were praying, how they were just, you know, relying on God. But the doctors were like, no, like, this can actually be threatening to your life. This can be threatening to the baby's life. Like, you need to get rid of this child, basically. And the child's born and healthy. And same thing with the guy that was doing hosting, I guess, the host of the podcast. You know, his family was advised to abort him because of complications, and yet here he is. I think he's like in his 40s, still living, still breathing, healthy. So, you know, it really does not matter. I'm not saying that you shouldn't listen to doctors. I'm not saying that, okay? You know, sometimes the doctors do know what the heck they're talking about. Sometimes treatment is an option, and it is necessary. But at the end of the day, God will have the final say always, you know? So it doesn't matter what the doctors say. It doesn't matter, you know, what people say and what people like, people's will for your life, or what people say about you, you know, I don't know, whatever, you fill in the blank of what others are trying to push onto you, or how other people perceive you that don't even really know you, that don't know God's plan for your life. It's like, it really doesn't matter. Like, you just need to really submit yourself and submit your own desires and your plans to the Lord. But like, you need to submit under his plan. That's what I'm trying to say, for your life, you know? Because just because it looks this way doesn't mean it's going to look this way forever. Like, that's not permanent, you know? And just because things look impossible doesn't mean that it is. Like, it's impossible with us, obviously. There's things that obviously are like not possible with human beings. But with God, nothing is impossible, you know? So that to me really was a special read. It really was. And like, you know, I've read this before. But you know, when you mature in your faith, and the more that you read, you could read a passage 1,000 times and it'll hit you differently every time. You're like, oh wow, I haven't read this. I haven't read the book of Luke, and I'm really enjoying it. It's really one of my favorite books of the gospel, because it talks about Jesus's, like, before, you know, he was known as Jesus. I mean, he's always been known as Jesus, but you know, his ministry didn't start until he was 30 years old. So it always makes me think, like, what the heck was he doing here? He just lived his life for 30 years as a regular person. Just like as a regular person, he just lived. He didn't perform miracles, because it says that his ministry didn't start until this age. So he just lived as a normal, regular human being here on this earth for a whole 30 years. I know that's like still young, but that's 30 years is a long time to be on this earth. It is. To me, it's a decent amount of time. And but I like how it dives into like this part of it, to like the backstory. It dives into like it talks about how Jesus, you know, when Mary and Joseph were looking for Jesus, and he was I forget what town he was in, but he was like back at the temple talking to I think the religious leaders. Sorry, now my nose is running. Religious teachers, and having like conversations with them. And hold on, what did he say? I think I'm here. It says, oh my gosh, hold on, if I can find it. Hold on. Wait, no. Three days later. Yeah, he was missing for 3 days. He was in the temple sitting among the religious teachers discussing deep questions with them. And then they ask, like, where have you been? We've been searching everywhere for you. And he says, you should have known that I would be in my Father's house. Or it says, didn't you realize that I should be involved with my Father's affairs? So anyways, but it dives into his childhood, which I love. I wish there was more on Jesus's childhood and like adulthood, because I'm like, what the heck did he do? Like, to me, it's so wild. But anyways, that really spoke to me, and I hope that it spoke to anyone else. If there's anybody else that it can speak to, then this is for you. And just to remind ourselves that nothing is impossible with God. And this is not me, like I don't preach like a prosperity gospel. I'm not preaching at all. I don't speak anything like, oh, prosperity and wealth. You know, we will have trials, we will have tribulations. That's literally what Jesus says in the Bible. You know, there will be hard times. I'm not saying that oh yeah, all you have to do is believe and God will just make it happen. God's not our genie. But you know, just to constantly remind ourselves that nothing's impossible with God. Nothing is impossible. You know, you see, and I think of Hannah. I always think about Hannah in the Bible back in was it First Samuel? You know, when she's literally like crying in agony to God, like, please, like I want a child. You know, oh my gosh, I forget the names. Okay, I'm gonna say her name is Penina. That's how I pronounce it. Penina. I don't know what her name is. I don't know how to pronounce it. But I forget the guy's name. That starts with the E. Oh my gosh, her husband. But you know, she was able to bear children, and Hannah was not. And you know, she's crying out in agony, and God heard her prayer and gave her Samuel. Look who Samuel was in the Bible. How crazy is that? So it's just really cool to see, you know, to see like God hearing people's prayers, and people who were once barren, or people who were once sick, or people who were once demon possessed, people who were once blind, people who were once lame, whatever it is, people who were once, you know, poor in faith, now rich in faith, poor in spirit, now rich in spirit. You know, like nothing is impossible with him. And that's the point of what I'm trying to say is, you know, like I said, I'm not talking about prosperity gospel, but I'm speaking to remind people of that God still works in this day and in this time. And you know, it really truly does not matter what man says. The final say is up to God. So yeah, anyways, that's it. Okay, until next time, adios.